Right, a shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bashem,
Right,
Yahweh,
hey, Shalom.
Bashem, Rakah, Kodash. I want to give double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. I learned this truth from. I want to say peace, mercy, and blessings unto all the hopeful elect. The true name of the Heavenly Father is Yahweh, which means he exists or he is to be. The true name of the Son is Yahweh Shai, which means he is to deliver. Okay, and we are the Hebrew Israelites. There's 12 tribes that make up the nation of Israel. Today we're being called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, Seminole Indians, Latin, Hispanics, okay, Cubans, Mexicans, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, etc. But we're the people that make up the lost 12 tribes of Israel, right? Now, the self-proclaimed Caucasian white man, okay, their biblical nationality is the evil, wicked twin brother of Jacob, which is Esau, Edom, Idumea, Mount Seir, right? And according to Bible prophecy, Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followed. Okay, so this lesson pretty much going to be with the situation in DC, and pretty much it's all out war against the tribes. It started with the Northern Kingdom, all right, so-called illegal aliens, immigrants, all right. But what we're coming to find out is that they're even targeting U.S. citizens, people that are legally documented. So this is a war against the tribes, and Mosai rose up as men in these last days to let you know who you are, all right, to let you know the real name of your power, which is Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, not God, not Jesus Christ. You know, to tell you to come back in these last days, and repent and return to your power, because the devil is getting ready to come down with great wrath to set up his new world order and institute his mark of the beast, you know? Give me 1 second. Just gotta make sure this audio is good. All right, so I got this video from Breakthrough News. As you can see, it says Trump hostiles take over DC as a test run for martial law. Right, so I'm going to play this, get out some precepts. I do have some more articles here, but without further ado.
So, Mara, can you explain how this manufactured crisis is essentially a prototype for martial law? And this is, of course, isn't the first time that Trump has done this, but he's basically extending what he started in LA to other cities across the country.
Well, I think what's happening right now in Washington, D.C. is, as you said, it is a prototype. It's a prototype of a police state. And Trump is looking at the District of Columbia as an easy mark for him to start imposing military rule, military force, federal police, National Guard, and to normalize it, to have people get used to the idea of seeing the military on the streets of American cities, and to have that kind of occupation force become a day-to-day existence. And
that's exactly what this is about. And it started in DC because that's, more territory, not actually a state. DC is part of the District of Columbia. So it's very easy for him to, institute the National Guard and put them on the streets, and he could do that quickly, you know.
District of Columbia with a racist tirade on Monday, in which he was, proclaiming the city as a disgusting wasteland, and he doesn't know anything about the city, of course, but it doesn't matter. And also talking with just like dripping racism about basically bulldozing, primarily working class Black neighborhoods, using a lot of veiled language, inciting and calling for violence against the residents of District of Columbia. But what he's done here is he has called out the National Guard because by a quirk of law in the District of Columbia, unlike most, real states that have governors, the governors can call up the National Guard. The District of Columbia National Guard can be called up by the president. So he's done that.
You can't do that in other places, because if you pay attention, the narrative that's being pushed is that, it's about crime rate. you know, let's see. This is from naturalnews.com. DC Police Union endorses Trump's federal takeover of Metropolitan Police Department. Okay, so I'm going to jump down. And, it says, you know, Trump declares crime emergency in DC. Pemberton's statement came shortly after Trump signed an executive order placing the NPD under federal control due to a surge in violent crime and chronic understaffing. I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the DC Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, Trump said on 8/11. This sidestepped the DC Mayor, Muriel Bowser, all right, which that's an Israelite woman, I believe, so-called black woman, the police chief and other local authorities to place Attorney General Pam Bondi in command of the department effective immediately. The order declares a crime emergency in Washington, citing threats to federal employees, tourists, and the function of the federal government, right? The White House contends that DC's elected leadership has failed to maintain public order and safety, justifying an extraordinary intervention under the order. DC's NPD now answers directly to the federal executive branch. As president, I have the solemn duty to take care that our laws are faithfully executed and a sacred responsibility to protect the safety and security of the U.S. citizens who live in and visit our nation's capital, okay, including federal workers who live or commute into the District of Columbia. These conditions cannot persist. Will make the District of Columbia one of the safest cities in the world, not the most dangerous, Trump wrote in an order. Trump also announced that he would deploy at least 800 National Guard troops and more than 500 federal law enforcement officers from federal agencies to Washington, D.C. to rescue the city from rampant crime and chaos. He claimed the capital has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, and warned that military intervention could follow if unnecessary. In this video, thousands rally in Washington, D.C. Against Trump and much today. And that lines up with the scriptures, 2nd Esdras 9, there shall be uproars of the people, confused rulers. Okay, so if you check this out, right, this is mpcdc.gov daily crime, 2025 year-to-date crime comparison. Okay, so if you look at the statistics from 2024 to 2025, if you check out the crime, homicide down 11%, SEX abuse down 50%, with dangerous weapons down 20%, robbery down 29%, and this is comparing 2024 to 2025. Okay, so if you're checking it out, crime is actually down. Now, it's not to say that there's no crime, all right, and there aren't, Jakes out there, doing criminal shit, but if you look at the statistics, crime is down. So that, brings up the question, what is this about actually? Well, it's actually a war on tribes, and he's starting over there in DC, District of Columbia, where it's actually easier for him to get troops on the ground. But this is just a blueprint, a prototype of what's going to be done all over the country. And the two, classes, that they're targeting right now is minorities and the homeless, So this is also part of Project 2025. So I'm gonna play a little more of this.
And then he's federalized the District of Columbia Metropolitan Police Department. That has never been done before. There is a provision, Section 40 in the DC Home Rule Act, that allows this to happen under certain circumstances. Certainly, we don't think either the circumstances for National Guard or federalization of DC police have been met. There are not emergency circumstances. Crime has fallen. He actually said he was doing this because of an increase in violent crime. But we know that that's not what this is about.
Exactly. So it's not about the crime. If you pay attention, there are worse places. Okay, this is from North American Community Hub. cities with high crime rates in the U.S. 10 cities with the highest crime rates in the U.S. Right? Just check off the list: Memphis, Tennessee; Detroit, Michigan; St. Louis; Baltimore, Cleveland; Ohio; Birmingham, Alabama; New Orleans, Louisiana; Little Rock, Arkansas; Kansas City, Missouri; Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Okay, those places have the highest crime rates right now, and DC is not even on the list. Okay, so that goes to show you right there. I asked the chat, you know, so I said, what does martial law mean? It says martial law is when the military temporarily takes over some or all functions of the government during an extreme crisis, war, large scale arrest, invasion, etc. It usually means tighter control to restore order. And that's what this is all about. So he still has something called, okay, yeah, something called auto abacao, which goes back to the Latin. And that's another thing. What's everything in Latin? You look at the back of the dollar bill, there it says, Novus Ordo Seclorum, which is New World Orders in Latin. That's because that was, pretty much the dominant official language of the ancient Roman Empire, showing you that we're in modern day Rome all over again. Ordo ab chaos is a Latin phrase that translates to order out of chaos. So they allow chaos in the streets, but then they're going to come in with their order, and the order is really oppressing the Israelites, throwing you in sea camps or prison. It says the devil shall cast some of you in the prison, and it's all out war. It literally translates to martial law, warlike law. It says back in the chat, it says what it can involve: curfews, checkpoints, and restrictions on movement of gatherings. And that links up with the prophecy in Second Esdras. This is Second Esdras 15 and 17. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. You see? So, that could pretty much what's happening in DC. It's just a prototype of what they want to do all throughout America, locking this place down, restricting travel, movement, and pretty much targeting the Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. Back in the chat, the military or National Guard enforcing laws and running essential services to break rules that can limit certain levels liberties. Example, warrantless searches in set areas. Okay. How it differs from a state of emergency. State of emergency, civilian leaders keep power, but get extra emergency authorities. Martial law, military authority replaces or dominates civilian authority in the affected area. Okay, U.S. specific limits. Quick overview. There's no single federal statute that defines martial law, and that's very rare. The Posse Comitatus Act generally bars the Army, Air Force from domestic policing unless authorized. The Insurrection Act is one authorization that lets the president use troops to restore order, and that's what Trump is doing, right? The Constitution still applies. Civilians can't be tried by military courts or regular courts are open. Suspension of habeas corpus is tightly limited to general congressional power in cases of rebellion or invasion. So it's not about the crime rate, because the crime is lower compared to other places, then it has to be pretty much of the blueprint of what they really want to do all over the country. So back in the video.
And like Rania mentioned, he's already talking about expanding this to other cities. He named Oakland, LA, Chicago, New York City, Baltimore, all cities with black mayors, by the way, but saying
cities, when you think about, they're predominantly, the majority of people in these cities are so-called minorities. You know, and whenever you look at the statistics, they call you the minority, meaning minor or less. But really, the so-called minorities make up, you know, the larger number of the people in those cities. So it's just Esau being the devil, a play on words, you know, because really the children of Israel are as the sand of the sea, and we outnumber him, you know. So this is Esau. This goes back to see, this is Exodus 1, verse 7. You know, linking America with modern day Egypt, Exodus 1:7. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, you know, and that's what's happening. You know, a lot of our people are getting up into higher positions in the government, becoming mayors, etc. You know, and ultimately that's what happened in the ancient Roman Empire. Jakes got up in their power, became Caesars, and pretty much overthrew Esau. You know, going back to Jacob being that usurper, you know, supplanter. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. That's Esau's greatest nightmare, you know. And it's projected that the so-called natives, you know, the indigenous tribes, they're going to far outnumber Esau. I believe it's about 10 years ago, the report came out on Russia Today, you know, that came out of how what they did doing to the natives, and how in about 2025, 2030, was about 9, 10 years ago, the numbers were far, you know, surpass the numbers of so-called whites, you know. Exodus 1:7, the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there rose up a new king over Egypt, which was not Joseph. You know, right now, the king of Babylon is Trump, you know, also called the cruel Lord, and he's coming down with cruel measures, you know, making it a crime to be homeless, but not actually giving them a way out. You know, you gotta think when this man was running, he said all manner of things that he was gonna do on the first day of him getting in office. It's all turned out to be all lies because he didn't do one of those things, man. You see, I think this is it.
As president, I will not cut one penny from Social Security or Medicare.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
Together, we will deliver low taxes, low regulations, low energy costs, low interest rates, and low inflation so that everyone can afford groceries, a beautiful car, and a home.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
This young girl from Italy, a champion boxer, she got hit so hard she didn't know what the hell hit her. It's a person that transitioned.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
Tariff is a tax on a foreign country. That's the way it is, whether you like it or not. A lot of people like to say, oh, it's a tax on us. No. It's a tax on a foreign country. It's a tax on a country that's ripping us off and stealing our jobs.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
We are going to start the largest mass deportation in the history of our country, and we're going to start with violent criminals.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
There you go. When this man, you know, was running for office, he said things that he was going to do. He's done the complete opposite and worse. You know, he's even to the point where people that were once pro MAGA, they're turning against him. You know, this Exodus 1 and verse 9, he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more mightier than we. 10, come on, let's deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there fall out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us and so get them outlawed out of their land. And that's what this is about. Making America white again, making it great again, putting the Israelites back into slavery. And this time the slavery is going to be a digital slavery through, the Haragma, the rights device from Revelation 13:16 on down.
They're all crime ridden. They're all, anarchic, chaotic. And I guess, he's doing the DC thing under the guise of this Home Rule Act, but constitutional protections, states have autonomy. And I mean, it really feels like he's just completely doing away with the autonomy of state governments, like he tried to do in LA with the protests there. So what do you make of this? I mean, is any of this legal? What is the precedent for this? And is this going to be challenged in courts?
I would expect this will absolutely be challenged in courts. And we, of course, at the Partnership for Civil Justice Fund are evaluating our next steps in the District of Columbia. But what he's doing in DC, naming this as an emergency, I mean, the basis for the emergency is saying an increase in violent crime to particular incidents of violent crime. Specifically, as I think everyone probably saw, he was making much about the beating of the Doge worker by 15-year-olds, the Doge worker who was famously known for calling himself Big Balls, and making that the point of why now DC has to become, under military type force. But there's another challenge that's happening, and it's aside from the legal challenge, which is community challenge. And this is the same thing he's going to face. He faced it in LA. He's facing it in DC. Immediately, members of the community have been out in the streets. They have been shouting, your rights information. They have been documenting what the police are doing. They are condemning what the police are doing. They are mocking what the police are doing. And it really shows this incredible community response by people who are making it clear, as this will be made clear all across the US, the people of the United States are not going to sit still and allow massive military force to occupy the city. Either a walk or a massive show of force to try and push people down into submission, and it won't succeed.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete.
Well, Mara, in the sense of it won't succeed, can you talk about what the pushback is? Or at the moment, is there any sort of political pushback from the Democrats, or are there organizations coming together to do anything to prevent this? Is there anything standing in Trump's way?
There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of organizations in DC, ours and many others, and immigrant rights groups and civil liberties and civil rights groups who are all organizing. There are community groups and grassroots groups who are on the ground who are organizing. People are.
I'm gonna pause it. If you want to watch the rest of that video, that's from Breakthrough News. Trump's hostile takeover. DC is a test run for martial law. Go back to this article here. This is from Natural News. Because this is causing uproars. It's not just in DC, it's in LA too. You have to look it up on TikTok as 24-hour music festival because, when TikTok went down, they pretty much heavily censored certain things. So there's a lot of things happening around the world that we're not even seeing no more, Lucky that video quality is fucked up. But nevertheless, you can see, they're out there protesting. The second act was 9-1 in the Good News translation. He answered, consider all these things very carefully. And that's, the prophecies that have been in the scriptures. When you see that some of the signs I've told you about have appeared, you would know that the time has come when the Most High power Yahweh Shem Shai will bring judgment on the world he created. And that's what's happening. You know, great judgment. You know, you just had the 8.8, I believe it was in Russia. You had the 8.8 near Russia. All right. That happened on what, July 30, it says there will be earthquakes, national rebellions, you know, and years back it was happening in different parts of the world, you know, France, Greece, you know, different parts of the world, they were upwards in national rebellions. Now, you know, those national rebellions are happening inside of America against Trump's policies, you know, international intrigues, unstable leaders, and confused rulers. And that's what Trump is. He's also that cruel lord, all right, coming down with cruel measures, especially against the tribes. You know, when you see these things happening, you would know that they are what the Most High has spoken about since the beginning of creations, right? Because the end was declared from the beginning. You know, it said that Esau is the end of the world. You know, and that's why there's, you know, war. You know, he was given a great sword to take away peace from the earth. You know, taking us 95, the beginning and the end of everything that happens in the world are clear. The same is true in the world above. Wonders and miracles show the beginning of events, and mighty signs show when they're in. You know, the blood moons, solar eclipses. You know, all these things point to the end. You know, go back to this video.
Donald Trump soft launched national martial law, talking about DC, but then saying, we're going to look at New York City, we're going to look at Baltimore, we're going to look at Oakland. And the media is mostly shrugging, and a lot of Americans have become desensitized to this. This is a red alert, my friends. You know, some of the changes that Donald Trump made to the tax law, I don't agree with them, but they're not sirens going off, right? Making Section 740 of the DC Home Rule Act, taking control of the DC Police Department. Listen to this.
And worse. This is Liberation Day in DC, and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States. I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the DC Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough, and they know what's happening.
There is no more dry run. It is happening right now. And know that no matter what I cover,
Beginning stages of Jacob's trouble. You know, it's happening.
some people write in and they say, David, you're downplaying the threat. And others write in and say, David, you're hyperbolically overplaying the threat. This is an authoritarian nightmare, and you only need to listen to Trump. Go straight to the source. I always say, CAPS, critically analyze primary sources. Go and listen to the full press conference, and you will see that there is no context that could make this okay, other than Trump saying before all of it, the next 45 minutes, I'm just going to, here is Trump saying, we are going to use the language of violence, which is the language they understand.
They are the Israelites. You know, they are the Israelites.
You knock the hell out of them because it's the only language they understand. But they fought back against law enforcement last night. And they're not going to be fighting back long because I've instructed them and told them whatever happens, you know, they love to spit in the face of the police as the police are standing up there in uniform. They're standing and they're screaming at them an inch away from their face. And then they start spitting in their face. And I said, you tell them, you spit and we hit. And they can hit real hard.
Pretty much, Trump is giving them authority to, you know. Okay, I don't want to play this bullshit. Pretty much, Trump is giving them authority to get physical and aggressive up there,
Donald
man.
Trump
You know. Okay.
soft launched national.
I want to go back to this other video.
Trump says we are going to go further. We're starting with DC, but we're going
It
further.
is. We have other cities that are very bad. New York has a problem. And then you have, of course, Baltimore and Oakland. We don't even mention that anymore. They're so far gone. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to lose our cities over this. And this will go further. We're starting very strongly with DC, and we're going to clean it up real quick, very quickly, as they say. It is.
You know, you know there are people who are still sort of in the Trump being Trump era. Oh, it's Trump being Trump. He's deploying troops. He's federalizing the police. He's doing these things. He's doing it right now. And the risk is that if we continue to look away, say it's just Trump being Trump, he's going to steamroll with this stuff. Now, there are some people who wrote in and said, David, this is obviously Trump distracting from the Epstein files. Put that out of your mind. Maybe it is a distraction, maybe it isn't. But this is the sort of stuff Trump promised during his campaign. So whether it de facto distracts from Epstein or it's calculated right now to distract from Epstein, it doesn't matter. That only minimizes the seriousness of it. Trump says, we are going to go further. We're starting with DC, but we're going further.
Revelation chapter 12, verse 12. It says, therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil, remember the devil goes into Esau being a great deceiver. Deception is one of his greatest tools, you know, lying. You know, he come in like he's trying to, you know, stop the crime rate, you know, but really this is the target against the Israelites, you know. It says the wicked are strange from the womb, that goes to Esau. You know, you can link this up with Malachi, Esau being the border of wickedness. But also the book of Maccabees, it tells you when the Esau, you know, under the Greeks got in power, that when they got in power, wickedness increased in the earth. It's the same way today. They're having rulership over the world, and wickedness is at an all-time high, right? So I says in Jeremiah that the you know, sins of Babylon have reached unto heaven. It says the wicked are estranged from the womb; they go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. Okay, you can't trust nothing the devil says, because it's all a lie. You know, and at the end of the day, if you get to the bottom of it, it's all war against the tribes. It started with the Northern Kingdom. Now it's happening to the Southern Kingdom. Okay, when I say Northern Kingdom, you know, you have to understand the history of Israel. On the map. So if you look at, you know, an ancient map, you know, during the time of King David, you know, all of the tribes were unified. You know, they were together. You know, on the time of Solomon, they were together too. We had 40 years of peace. After the death of Solomon, the kingdoms were split between the two sons, Jeroboam and Rehoboam. You know, with Israel went 10 tribes. You know, the head tribe of the northern of the kingdom is Ephraim. You know, today they'll be so-called Puerto Ricans. You know, and then you have you know, that's the northern kingdom. which has consisted of 10 tribes. Today, majority of them are Spanish-speaking tribes, whatever, Mexican, Cuban. Then you have the Southern Kingdom, which is Judah, the Negroes, you know, also Jamaicans, Benjamin and Judah, and Levi, because the Northern Kingdom ended up pushing the tribe of Levi out, So you have Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. So when we think about the Northern and Southern Kingdoms, that's what it goes back to. Now it correlates with today. It started with them ICE, immigration, custom enforcement, them targeting so-called illegals, deporting them. Then information came out how, they're being put in, helicopter and dropped over large bodies of water. Their body parts washed in the shore, they're in very inhumane conditions being in prison. So we don't really know what's happening to these people that are being taken by ICE who are not actually lawful. They're just people cosplaying as officers, grabbing people up, pretty much kidnapping, doing whatever to them. Now you have DC out. Now you have guards deployed out there in DC, targeting the tribes, the Southern Kingdom. Then you mentioned other cities where mainly the tribes are, man. So this is about a war against the Israelites. So that's him coming down with great wrath. It's Revelation 12:12. Therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devils come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he had but a short time. One of the indicators that his time is running out is the camps, the prophets, starting with the apostles and elders that hit the highways and hedges and teach. They tell the people who we are, what happened to us, what's coming in the future, who our enemy is, who Esau is, future prophecies. All right. So because this information is getting out, it's becoming common knowledge. He knows he got a short time. And also they're coming out telling you that time is speeding up. That's really the Lord shortening the days for his elect's sake. And, see, I think this is the other one.
As president,
That's not it.
When they attack Black people after they've been murdered,
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. Donald Trump has officially declared war on the Black community by unleashing the military.
You niggas went and voted for this man. Scripture tells you shouldn't be setting nobody over you that's not of your nation. Forget what that's at exactly. There it goes. This is Deuteronomy 17 and 15. It says, "Thou shalt in any wise," go back to the whole thing. So Deuteronomy 17 and 14. When thou art come unto the land which Yahweh, Hashem Yahushua, that power giveth thee, and shall possess it, and shall dwell therein, and shall be 15. Thou shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom the Lord thy power choose. Run from among thy brethren, shalt thou set king over thee. Thou mayest not set a stranger over thee, which is not thy brother. And that's what our people are guilty of. Niggas for Trump, Latinos for Trump. Look at this shit, man. Niggas for Trump. the Latinos for Trump. So a lot of our people put this man in office, so they put him in office. Now you're being persecuted in prison, deported, and targeted. he's damn devil. He said what he said. He should vote. This is John 19:15. But they cried out, away with him, crucify him. No, actually, let me start up. From the book of John, chapter 19. John 19:14. I'll start at 13. When Pilate therefore heard that saying, he brought forth Yahushua. The name is not Jesus. The letter J is only about 400 years old. When you look at the 1611 KJV, the letter J is not even in there. It says Isos, but the Hebrew name is Yahushua. And the Lord did speak Hebrew. When Paul gave his testimony, he said, the Lord spoke to me in the Hebrew tongue. So when you speak a different language, your name don't change. It says, when Pilate therefore heard that saying, he brought forth Yahushua forth and sat down in the judgment seat in the place that is called the pavement, but in the Hebrew, Gabbatha. And it was the preparation of the Passover in about the 6th hour. And he said unto the Jews, behold your king. But they cried out, away with him, crucify him. Pilate said unto them, shall I crucify your king? The chief priest answered, we have no king but Caesar, right? And that's the spirit our people in the day. Niggas for Trump, Latinos for Trump. That's the modern day Caesar. 16. Then delivered he them. Then delivered he them therefore unto them to be crucified. And he took Yahushua and led him away. And he bearing his cross went forth into a place called the place of the skull, which is called in the Hebrew Golgotha, where they crucified him, and two other with him on the other side, one and Yahushua in the midst. And Pilate wrote a title and put it on the cross. And the writing was Yahushua of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. The title then read many of the Jews for the place where Yahushua was crucified was united to the city. It was written in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. So that's the point I wanted to make. Those were the dominant languages back then. Our people spoke all those languages because they were scattered. That's why in Acts 2 it says devout men from every nation. That's another reason why the Lord gave his men power to speak different language, because they had to go in those language. They had to go into those nations and speak that language to those people who were scattered there. I think this is in the same chapter. That one's in Matthew. This is Matthew 27 and 25. Then answered all the people that his blood be on us and our children. That's exactly what's getting ready to happen. During the time of Jacob's trouble, the Most High is about to let Esau off the leash. It's going to be mass slaughter. A lot of our people are getting ready to be slaughtered now. He could see.
FBI agent, I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. Donald Trump has officially declared war on the Black community. By unleashing the militarized police and the National Guard, ICE, FBI agents, all into DC is an attack on Black people. And when I used to make
Black
videos,
with the Israelites. You know, the word black is a byword to conceal our true identity and to mock us. It goes back to Psalm 33. Let us cut them off from being a nation. All the tribes and all the other nations on the world are confederate, meaning they're in agreement. They're with it.
defending the Latino and the Mexican community. People used to come for me in my comments and they would say, it's not our fight. I say, yes, it is our fight. This man is going against the Constitution. He's treating people like animals. Well, now he's trying it for us. This man.
Exactly. And that proves that we are the same people because we're both being oppressed by the same people. So-called white people, the Edomites, we're both being oppressed by the same devil, man. No, not 50. Okay, it was Jeremiah 50 and verse 33 says, "Thus said Yahweh Shem Shab host the children of Israel and the children of Judah." So that goes back to the northern and southern kingdom. Were oppressed together. That didn't happen in the ancient world because when you go to the history, the Assyrians oppressed the northern kingdom. They led them away captive. The Babylonians oppressed the southern kingdom, led them away captive. After that Assyrian captivity, the 10 tribes came to the Americas, the islands of the New World. Only the southern kingdom began then to go into other captivity, Greek captivity, Roman captivity, etc. So the only time we were oppressed really together was in ancient Egypt, and modern day Egypt was America again, linking America with Egypt, spiritual Sodom in Egypt. Jeremiah 50:33. Thus said Yahweh Shem Shab host the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together. So the northern kingdom is being oppressed by us, and Judah is being oppressed by the police and National Guard. We're all being oppressed here together, and all that took them captives, held them fast. They refused to let them go because the Most High is going to harden his heart so he could show his great power, and magnify his name in delivering us and destroying this place. 34, the Redeemer is strong. Yahweh Bashem Shab host, the Lord of armies, in his name. He shall thoroughly plead their cause that he may give rest to the land and to disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon.
Has tried to get to Black people since he's been in office, and every day it was something new, and we'd wake up and we just laugh it off and say, oh well, you ain't talking to us. Now he has found a way to release the police on us, and he had said before he got in office that the police could do whatever they wanted to do and he would back them. Whereas no more stop and frisk. All that, those police killings, they're back. They're back. Protect your children. Protect yourself, because we have a sick individual in office, and whoever voted him in is a sick motherfucker too.
This is Isaiah 19 and verse 4. And the Egyptians, will I give over into the hand of a cruel Lord. And that's Trump, coming down with those cruel policies, unrighteous decrees, and a fierce king shall rule over them, said Yahweh Shem Shab host. This is Isaiah 10 and verse 5. O Assyrian, the rod of my anger, and the staff in their hand is mine indignation. So modern day Assyrian is Esau. He has a special hatred for the northern kingdom too, especially Trump. You know, O Assyrian, the rod of my anger and a staff in their hand is mine indignation. That's their modern day swords, guns, weapons, etc. Verse 6, I will send him against an hypocritical nation. That applies to the Israelites. Black Lives Matter. People scream this protest, cry, jump, roll on the floor, march, you know, but the main ones oppressing our people are other Israelites. you know, there's no marching when Israelites, like they just had a Jake in Chicago who got killed on live for his chain. No outcry against that, but niggas will march to do this or that when a cop kill them. So that's a hypocritical nation, you know. I will send him against a hypocritical nation and against the people of my wrath will I give him a charge. So that's them being given over to the hand of a cruel Lord to take the spoil and to take prey and to tread them down like mire in the streets. So it's getting ready to be very bad out here, man. We're gonna need Yahweh Shem Shai, you know. This is Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse 5. For thus said the Lord, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. We ain't in a time of peace. As long as this man is in power, there will be no peace on earth, you know. 6, ask ye now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Men don't get pregnant, they don't have labor pain, they don't have contractions. But due to fear and terror and dread that's coming, you would think so, you know. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. Face turned into paleness is a sign of great fear, terror. Someone that's afraid. 7, alas, for that day is great, so that none is like in this time that's coming. It's going to be far worse than 70 AD, far worse than chattel slavery. We know that because the technology is far more advanced. He really don't have, he could just send a drone through. He really don't have to have troops on the ground. He can send a drone. They have DARPA has robot dogs, etc. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble going into the tribes, but he shall be saved out of it. And how are we going to be saved is starting with the elect. 2/3 of our people, they're going to get caught up in Jacob's trouble, the hour of temptation. A lot of them are going to take the Haragma, which is the mark of the beast. They were talking about it. Neuralink on the Breakfast Club, So we're in those times, man. So I'll get one more precept and I'll close it. It's the book of Daniel, chapter 12 and verse 1. And at that time, because it's going to get very bad to where, we're going to need divine intervention, protection, and at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never since there was a nation worse than what happened during the time of Antiochus, when they forced our people to be Greeks, And that's why the New Testament says neither Jew nor Greek, Even to that same time, and at that time, thy people shall be delivered. Every one that shall be found written in the book, and Lord's will report the elect written in the book. So with that, stay watching, stay prayed up. Hope this has brought some edification. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Shem Shai. Say shalom to the full elect.